So, after years and years of fighting against Spain and Portugal, new nations all across Latin America had this huge task ahead of them. How do you build a society from scratch? And let me tell you, that single question kicked off a massive debate between two really powerful ideas. It was the old world versus the new, and what happened next was, well, it was basically a battle for the soul of an entire continent. Let's get into it.
I want you to just imagine this for a second. The fight for independence, it's over. The colonial rulers are gone. You and everyone you know are standing there, finally breathing free air. But then this enormous question hits you. What do we do now? How do you build a nation that's actually going to last? I mean, this was the critical challenge facing millions of people.
With a question that big, a lot of leaders, well, they argued for playing it safe. After all the chaos of war, the idea of just having some stability was really appealing. Their answer was to look backward, to follow a path guided by an idea called classical conservatism, which promised order and a return to the old ways.
So what does that actually mean? Well, classical conservatives believe society just works better when you stick to traditions that have been around forever. They really valued a clear social hierarchy. The idea that some people are just born to lead and others are meant to follow. See, for them, freedom could be messy, maybe even dangerous. And that meant they wanted strong rulers, like kings, and they believed the wealthy elite were the best people to hold power and keep everything stable and in order.
And you can really see this mindset in the policies they pushed for. They brought in strict censorship to stamp out what they saw as dangerous new ideas. They were big fans of government surveillance to keep an eye on everyone and prevent any trouble. They wanted to restrict immigration to keep the culture just the way it was. And above all, they were determined to maintain that traditional social hierarchy. The whole game was about control.
But there was another, completely different vision for the future. This one came straight from the Enlightenment, the very ideas that had sparked the revolutions in the first place. This was the path of freedom, and it was championed by an ideology called classical liberalism.
Okay, so classical liberalism basically flipped the whole conservative view on its head. It said that individuals, not kings, not big institutions, should be the top priority. Liberals believe that people were smart enough to make their own decisions and should be free to go after their own dreams. So, in their view, the government's main job wasn't to control everybody, but to protect their natural rights and make sure the playing field was level, with things like free markets and private property.
And the difference in how they wanted to run things was just stark. Instead of censorship, liberals fought for free speech, so people could actually say what they think. Instead of the government controlling every little thing, they wanted to get rid of regulations to let businesses grow. They pushed for equal access to education for everybody, and maybe most importantly, they demanded written constitutions to limit the government's power and protect everyone's freedom.
So now you've got these two completely opposed blueprints for how to build a country. Latin America was truly at a crossroads, and the path they chose would shape the lives of people for generations. This wasn't just some political argument, It was a real struggle for the heart and soul of these brand new nations. It all really came down to two competing forces. Is society something that should be managed from the top down, where power flows from a ruler to the people? Or is it something that should be built from the ground up, with power starting with the citizens themselves? These two visions just couldn't exist in the same place.
And you can see this divide so clearly when you look at who was on each side. Liberalism really appealed to the educated middle class. We're talking merchants, lawyers, people like that. Conservatism, on the other hand, was the ideology of the old guard, royalty, church leaders, and major landowners. And their goals? Worlds apart. Liberals were pushing for modern stuff like written constitutions and separating powers. Meanwhile, conservatives were fighting to keep kings on their thrones and protect the traditional power of the church. At its core, one side was fighting for change and the other was fighting to stop it. So, when you strip everything else away, this whole conflict really comes back to one big philosophical question. What is a society even for? What's its main purpose? For the conservatives, the answer was simple: stability. That's it. They believed that keeping traditions and the old power structures in place was the best way to keep things from falling into chaos. But for liberals, the purpose of society was opportunity. They argued that the only way to really move forward, to progress, was to give every single person the freedom to build their own life.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question, right? It's something these new nations were struggling with, And frankly, it's something we still debate today. What's the greater goal? Is it to build a society that is perfectly stable and orderly? Or is it to build one that is truly, and yeah, maybe a little messily, free?